Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Fempreneur True Confessions podcast.
Welcome, everyone, and hello. I am Laura or Oda, and I own a virtual assistant project management agency that is here to help businesses find the confidence they need. So, you need that help behind the scenes to grow, and so we're here to help with that so that you don't have to be everything and all things in your business. And
Yeah.
that's ODA.
And I'm Angelique with Lady Powerhouse Solutions. And Laura and I do really similar things. We both have an agency model, and I do project and event management. And we have been collaborating now for
2 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, on one thing or another, and it's just been wonderful. Like, we're going on a podcast here pretty soon. It's later this month, right? We're
Mhm.
going on a podcast as guests. First time ever. It'll be so much fun talking about how we work together and how we met and our journey and everything. And I'm super excited about it. I met another gal this morning who has an agency, and I was like, we need to collab. We need to support and help each other. And I think it was a pleasant surprise,
Yeah.
you know. And but anyway, that's what we're about, and that's why we started the podcast, because we weren't seeing this modeled,
Right.
this abundance mindset.
Yeah, it's difficult. Those of you who've listened before, for me, it just became down to I need support. Like, I needed to speak with someone who knew my business. People know business, but know exactly what I was trying to build. And then who do you talk to? Because then they are your direct competition. And that just drove me crazy, because at one point it was just like, oh, screw it. I'm going to have a leap of faith. Can we talk? And I pray, do anything dirty. It's just one of those things where it's like you
Yeah.
just have to open up to it. And I had to have faith in the fact that I was going to get the support I needed. The people that I brought into my world were going to be kind, and not deceitful. And, I just took that leap of faith in that. And being able to do that, it was really, we needed it, and then that idea, as you and I talked, both of us were like, I'm not competing with you, and I actually
Yeah.
need your help. Do you want to come work with someone I just brought in, things like that. And it just really naturally grew to that. And we didn't have to partner up in order to help each other. We can still have our own distinct businesses, but still
But like
also.
we are partnered up. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's really cool. It's not like in writing, but it's we're business besties. I don't know another way to
Right.
put it. I see that we do have at least one live watcher, somebody who's tuning in live, and we'd love for you to drop a comment and say hello wherever you're tuning in from. If you are listening live at any point, if you're listening to the replay, we love to see comments from replay watches and listens as well. So if you're out there and you're listening, leave us a comment. Also, something we have never asked for on this podcast is for reviews. If you listen and you like it, please follow and leave us a review. Let us know, did you get anything out of the latest episode, or what's your favorite episode, and tell us why. That's really helpful for us, especially
Absolutely.
as we're moving into getting sponsorships and stuff like that. But
Yes.
super excited about today's guest.
I am too. You want to bring her on? I'll introduce her. I have all my buttons went, but hi, this is Jamie.
Hi,
Um,
hi, ladies.
Jamie, hi everyone. So her bio is while working in the psychiatric hospital setting. Here we go. Jamie noticed the gap in education regarding mental health. She created Helpful Living magazine. Her goal is to provide support, resources, and debunk the stigma on mental health. Jamie started speaking publicly about mental health and wellness during the pandemic. At the top of 2024, Jamie started her podcast, Going Through with Jamie. And as she continues to strive and express the importance of mental health and wellness, her desire is to continue to speak at events and be bold about ending the stigma on mental health. Yay!
Yeah. Right.
Yay! like Oh my God, yes. And I think we've kind of, as we've gotten into mental health through the years and stuff, and it's become more open, mental health people, there's still a scared moment in
Stigma.
there. Like, yeah, where you're like, okay, I'm going to say this. And I always joke about it, but like, I'm certifiable, whatever. We're a family of certifiable.
I heard somebody say at some point that everyone is mentally ill in some way, shape, or form. And I feel like that's so true. And it's not that, I mean, it's like, just like we're physically, every year we get a cold, or every year our allergies act up. Mentally, we have those same issues. Okay. Like we have a mental allergy, whether it's, something that a past trauma or unresolved, it hasn't been, looked at, because there's that stigma. If I say that I am seeing a therapist, because people in the past have been typically sick, like serious mental illness. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But we're talking about the common cold versus
A
terminal
diagnosis.
cancer.
Yeah.
The same spectrum is in mental health.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody hesitates to go to the ER. Hey, Lisa, nobody hesitates to go to the ER if they've had a fever for so many days.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
But we won't say we went to this week's therapy session or this month's therapy session. And we need to be more open about that. And what's the word?
I say free about it, but
Normalize it.
Yeah,
Normalize.
normalize it. And you both bring a good point, because we all have mental health. And we may not have like a diagnosis, like how you mentioning like something severe, but we do all face mental health challenges day to day. I mean, like a memory can pop up on our feed, and it could be triggering, depending on what a smell, a song on the radio, anything can kind of bring
Oh
up.
my gosh, that just happened to me yesterday.
Yeah.
I heard this song and I immediately remembered that feeling associated with that song and the person.
Mm-hmm.
Now, luckily it was a good feeling. Okay. But, and it took me a second. I heard the song, it was on a show, and it took me a second to go, oh, that feels good. Why does that feel good? Oh, it reminds me of so-and-so.
Yeah.
But the same thing, yes, can happen negatively. And I have negative triggers as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All the time. I mean, just even when you go through something, like say, for instance, something happened where it caused you to go to the hospital, not even a mental thing, maybe a physical thing. Maybe, you got sick or something. Months later, you get the bill. That triggers, that could be triggered. Like, I thought I was homeless, So it's just, there's so many things. And that's why I think it's really important to normalize it, because we all go through it. And that's the thing that sometimes can be a little, I would say frustrating, but I can understand why, because of just how mental health has been stigmatized, how it's been viewed in the past. And I feel like the pandemic really like shook everybody, because we're like all in this together, right? Like dealing with, the challenges that came with the pandemic. And so there's a lot that came out of COVID, but I will say I'm glad that mental health awareness was starting to be discussed more.
I think because it became blatantly obvious when we had to sit in the same house and we couldn't run away from the issues anymore.
That part.
You couldn't avoid. You had to face things. And I think that was definitely a factor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When you get used to being around people for so long, like for me, for years, was in a call center of hundreds, and then it got smaller when we moved, and then all of a sudden it was none. And I'm not a social person, but then completely disconnecting socially or not having that in that way was the other side of it. Like, I didn't think I'd ever miss people. You ask me, I will never miss people. And then all of a sudden I was like, well, I miss people I enjoy.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
might be few and far between, but I still do enjoy some people, like it was just very different. So, what happened there?
I don't know.
Oops. There we go.
We are having some technical dickies.
It's Monday.
That's what we call them, Jamie.
Technical dickies.
Technical dickies.
It's usually me, so I'm glad somebody else is going to have them today. I'll give you that.
One of the things I wanted to talk about, the name of this episode is Everyone Has an Audience. And that has to do with abundance mindset and having this belief that, like you had said, this world is such a big place. Mm-hmm. Everyone has an audience. And I mean, look, it's like you said, I loved what you said in your intake form. Look how many different brands of bread there is.
I know.
Water. Like, how many different ways can you make water? I mean, or market it. I mean, we'll get into marketing later because that's another thing, right? Mm-hmm. But each brand has their audience. Why do we buy Zephyr Hills water over Avion, right? Mm-hmm. And then, so you mentioned this term that I had never heard before, and I want you to talk about it. Crabs in a bucket.
Yeah, well, I live in Maryland, so we'll start there. Maryland, I'm originally from Pittsburgh, but I moved to Maryland in 2009, and I heard the term a lot then. And when you think of crabs in a bucket, you really see them kind of climbing over each other, trying to literally get out the bucket, but they're just
getting nowhere.
They're not getting anywhere. There's no one like, all right, this is what we're going to do. You're going to get on this person's shoulder. None of that.
Yeah.
Every man for themselves or every woman for herself. And so, it's just really important that I feel like when you're doing things by yourself, you don't get anywhere. Like it takes a community and it takes a community to work together. That's why I admire what you ladies are doing in regards to the platform and the podcast and how you ladies came together, because we're stronger together. And I know we've all heard that, but we literally are. And so, it does us such a disservice when we act like crabs in the bucket, but like, oh, I'm gonna get out first. And it's just like, no, you're gonna fall down to the bottom. Like the rest of everyone, until we have the mindset to change, how we view things. It's like, and it's not always who gets there first, right? It's
right.
Like, if the whole, goal is to serve people and help people, why not do that together? Like, even if you do get it first, you probably don't have the capacity to serve all the people anyway. Hence why there's so many bottles of water.
Exactly.
Cereal and, and so, when I went to the grocery store and I noticed that, I was just like, yeah, everybody has an audience because, it's just, if it wasn't, we would have one of everything.
Right.
And we don't.
Right. Yeah. Well, and the idea, that, again, like you're saying, that crab in a bucket where they're everywhere and we're just trying to get to that top, we then celebrate that. Oh, you're the first one out. Oh, it's the new inventive idea. Oh, it's the first. And that's where it's celebrated. And then those that come after, it's like, well, they've already kind of done it. Or why, what would make you different? So then the next step is then having to explain why you're different. And the truth is, may not be. Could be exactly the same. But it's very interesting how we're really, our mind is really trained to also celebrate the first and then question the rest. Mm-hmm. Where, and in a world where there is a lot of marketing, there is a lot of agencies that do certain things, or we do similar things, that's where we had to break off that non-compete, because with being to people in this world, I'm good with my piece of the pie. That's where I came to. Like, I'm not trying to be Walmart. I'm trying to be Oda.
Right.
And yeah. Different for me, and that kind of thing. So I think once getting past coaching and getting into things where it's like, this is just my part. This is what I love. This is great. I don't need to be in competition. Now I get to embrace everybody else and celebrate all these other businesses coming in. That felt so much better.
Yeah.
Wiping out the rest of that nonsense coming out of corporate and just being like, yay, you did it. Yay, you did it. And it could be exactly the same. You both did it. Yay. And nobody's one or the other top or better or anything else. That just always felt so much better. So
yeah, and people connect with different people differently, you know, and so we could be doing the exact same thing, but everybody, you know, connects differently. And
that's how we do it.
Yeah, you go with people that you connect most with, and you know, and that pans out better instead of. And I think when we do it that way, you're not challenged with all these different things or stretching yourself so thin because you have, you know, abundance of, you know, all these people that you have to serve or products that you're doing. And it could get overwhelming. And then oftentimes with that, the quality goes down, you know, when you're serving so many, you know, the quality isn't the same anymore. So then it's like, does that really help you? Because now you're, you know, spread thin and
spread so thin.
Yeah. And it shows.
Yeah. And I love Lisa's comment here. She says, we don't need to be Walmart. We need to be exactly who we are.
Yeah,
exactly.
You want to say hi to Jackie? I hope I don't mess it up. Jackie Balaj?
I think it's Jacques.
Jacques. Oh,
I think. Welcome.
Okay, I'm terrible. Welcome. Thank you for joining us and for the chatting in.
Not sure he's still there, but so your story. You have a story about you published a book.
A long time ago. A long time ago.
What's a long time ago, girl?
I would say, what are we in 24? So 2011, 12.
Okay.
Yeah. I published probably 2011 or maybe even 2010, but I published ebook. The ebook is called Simply Unique Short Stories. And I was so excited. I was just like, oh, this is going to be amazing. You know, I'm going to post it and it's just going to be like ding, 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 ding. All the notifications of people who are going to buy this 99-cent ebook. And I was just like excited. I got somebody to design it. And it was very simple because it was an ebook. So it was just a cover and maybe like a border. But I felt like then, I mean, I didn't know how to do it. There wasn't Canva, at least I didn't know.
Right.
Of Canva. So I had to I remember I met the young lady at Barnes and Nobles and she showed me the design and I was just like, oh, we're really going to get this great. And got the website up, put the ebook in, made the announcement, and I was like, okay, I ain't heard nothing. It was crickets. It was just like, you know, but people knew like, oh, I heard you did an ebook. And I'm like, yeah, you ain't buying it. So, you know, that was like my very first time just like being introduced to just like, I guess, selling, marketing, however. And I'm like, wow, it's really a lot to it. You know, it's not just producing the product, but also, you know, creating that audience and, you know, that anticipation and, you know, and just having a community. Right. And then I think around that time, ebooks were like starting to become popular, right? Like there was the e-readers, the Kindles, the Nook. And I think even at that time, like iPads or whatever, were starting to, you know, have the e-readers. So it was like really popular. A lot of people were doing it. And it seemed like I will always hear about these amazing stories of somebody post the ebook and then the sales just went through the roof. But they don't tell you the backstory. You know, they don't
yes, girl.
You know, this person's been marketing for however, or this person has an audience and created that anticipation and things like that. So very early on, I was appreciative of that experience because I knew moving forward, all right, what can I do better? And so very good learning lesson.
It's a valuable lesson. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm glad it was an ebook because it was like very cost effective. You know, it was very, you know, it didn't take much, just some editing and her designing it and that was it. But I think that's important for anybody who's starting out their journey, just to kind of understand the importance of audience, the importance of community and connection and networking, and then being genuine about it. Like, don't network just to get what you want out of it. You know what I mean? Or just like have that me mentality or that give me mentality. Like, you have to really be authentic because people, they feel that and they see that, for sure.
I love that you touch on that because I do a lot of networking. And the biggest thing for me is if it becomes transactional, I shut down. I'm there for connection. If something else comes into that conversation and we talk business, that's wonderful. But for me, it has never been the primary intention. It's never been my focus or goal, because my business will grow as it needs to grow. And I'm comfortable in that. I believe in that. So just the connections that you make, that's where it grows. And not everybody is looking for what you have, but they may know a lot of people that do. And so when you become transactional and then they don't need you and you're like, oh, well, okay, and you don't bother, it's how many other people that they may have loved to send over to you because they really liked you, and then you went sour on whatever meeting, and then it's all of a sudden that, okay, well, would I even want to work with their people anyway? Are they all like this? I don't want to deal with a whole bunch of people like this, and things, those are, so when we're like, everyone, like, it's like, well, it feels like we fail or it doesn't go where it needs to and that kind of thing. And I'm like, no, because we're learning. That's, for me, it's the universe's way of telling you those aren't your people. You don't want to work with them and that kind of thing. Like, you're shut off from people for a reason. And I've learned to really embrace that, in business, especially in those lessons. Like you said, it's just an ebook. It was a good lesson. It's a way of seeing how it's going to be and where do you go from there. And then again, being able to help you kind of decide, like, is it going to be big? Is it going to be little? What do you want? Do you want to be Walmart? If you do, what is that going to take? So how big is that going to get and how long is that going to happen? Because to your point, we never know, again, what's going on behind the scenes and how long something actually took. Those bright, shiny objects are kicking our ass every time because I can guarantee it didn't look that bright and shiny behind the scenes, Yeah, we just don't discuss it enough.
One of the things that you said in the intake form was about that experience was that you learned about building an audience, the importance of it, but also about becoming relatable.
Yeah.
And I think that is key. And then you said you've been doing that ever since. And so my personal opinion is now that you do have an audience, you do have a following, you are relatable. If you were to launch a book now or whatever, maybe a talk, right? Then that you would have success in that because you have built relationships with your audience. And I think for me, networking is such an important aspect of being an entrepreneur and being relatable while you're networking. Don't just talk about, oh, I did this great thing or I did that great thing. Talk about, I really fucked up the other day and this is what happened and this is what I learned from it. Have you ever experienced anything like that? And being able to, and I think that's one of the reasons that Laura and I's relationship is so strong, is that we were vulnerable with each other. And we didn't hesitate to call each other out on our bullshit.
Yeah.
We're kind of accountability partners.
Like,
I like but I think that relationship building aspect, networking has gotten kind of yucky since I've been in business. And I've, when I first started networking, it was mostly on LinkedIn. And now LinkedIn is just, it's so spammy. It's so Like people will connect with you and immediately send you a sales pitch. It's like, that's not what I'm here for.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons I really like the Alignable platform. If you haven't heard of it, check it out. But also, to your point, I collaborated with another person. We created Launch Your Book yourself.
Oh, nice.
We called her Libby, and it's a package that her and I collaborate on, and we sell for self-publishing authors, or even people that are traditionally publishing or hybrid publishing, because even though you might have a traditional publisher, a lot of the marketing still falls on the author.
Yeah, it does. And
that's one of the first things we tell them is get your website and start building an audience immediately. As soon as you even have the inkling of an idea that you're going to publish a book, start creating your really building your relationships and your connections and all of that good stuff. So, that I think that's really an important lesson that you have shared your story. And I just want to reiterate that and say, yeah, exactly what she said.
Yeah. I appreciate that, because your audience will go to bat for you. Your audience will be the ones that say, I read this book, or I, found this product. Like it's really those in your community that, that believe in you, that will push you forward, and oftentimes when you, or anyone, I know for me, for instance, whenever I would start something, I was like, oh, I got to get this to the most famous person. I want to sit on Oprah's couch, or I want to sit on, whoever's the talk show at the time, because I want to get it out there. But that doesn't necessarily mean a sale's going to come. I mean, they get people on their show all the time. So, the exposure, you might can say now was seen on such and such, show, but like the sales is really, and the community is really going to come from people that connect with you, and I think that's all the more important, at least for me in my experience that I've been able to witness.
Your true fans, like your true people that are there, and whether it be family or friends, and then your audience and the fans that come in, it really is that true grouping. They're gonna go to bat too. They're in comments. I go into things and they're in comments and they're battling it out. And the actual page it belongs to is quiet because they're going back and forth. This is the audience now, and they get to have that, but they'll definitely go to bat because a lot of times people who are closer to you do see the behind the scenes, and they're not too kindly to the fact that you don't see that most people are commenting to the external of just the visual they see, but your true fans usually know the shit behind the scenes and some of the struggles and the things that go on, and stuff like that. And it's very interesting because that's where you see it at. That's where you see people are really pulling for you and building for you, because that's in that audience, in that structure. It's them going, you don't know, or this is different or whatever. And that shows it even just to you. If you're having a down day and you're seeing people going to battle even for you, then like you've impacted people's lives. They really do know you and trust you. That's your people. Those are your group. And it makes it really awesome to have that, because I think behind the scenes as well, we don't always see that we're making an impact. We're hoping we are. We hear it from time to time, but believing it can be really hard.
And we forget.
Right.
We do forget, especially when we feel like we ran out of ideas, or we feel like, oh, I done said this already, and like you do forget. But that's why it's always good to just be in with your own audience,
and save those, because I know when I was in corporate, I had a kudos file. So every time I got a compliment or something from my boss or a coworker or whoever. I ran an event and they really loved it, whatever. I would save them And when it came time for my review, I compiled them.
Mm-hmm.
And, because they always ask, why do you think you deserve a raise? Well, there's this, there's all these reasons. There's all this stuff that I did that was effective or that saved the company a certain amount of money or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to circle back to, because I used to have a work with a lady. Actually, I was in a choir with her and she worked in the mental health. They called it behavioral health ward, right, at the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Girl, that takes a special kind of person.
Oh, it does.
It takes such a. You have to be called, I think, really, to cut it in an environment for any length of time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I think it could take a toll on you for sure. You definitely aren't in it for the money. It's a lot. I remember when I first at the psychiatric hospital, I didn't start off, well, what I started off doing, I didn't end up doing. So I worked on a unit, a children's unit from ages 3 to 12. And so, it was challenging. I was 22?
Wow.
I was 22 at the time. So, fresh out of undergrad, you ready to roll your sleeves up. You done read all the case studies. You're like, oh, I'm ready to do this. And the book is nothing like what it
Right.
is,
The reality.
the reality. And so, and even with just hearing, because typically you hear about a case before they come on to the, to the unit. And even what they say on paper isn't really accurate.
Right.
And oftentimes, and not to say that they're not doing anything to cause them to get into the hospital, but typically I feel like, you have to build your case, because then otherwise, why would insurance pay for it? So, you meet these amazing people, because they just have some challenges and live life more than I have at 20 something years old. I mean, just things, and it's an emotional roller coaster, I mean, just hearing their stories, seeing their behaviors, but understanding why they behave that way.
Yeah.
You
can have an understanding,
yeah,
but it will still affect you. There's still an effect, right?
Yeah.
I spent years working with teenagers and burned out, because I knew eventually all these kids in my world would be teens. And I didn't want to hate them before they ever made it there. Like, because the dread of dealing with a teenager in my own home after doing that for 13 years, forgetting that there were differences in, my home, things are different, but there were a lot of us where it was like, oh, my kids are about to be teenagers, and I don't know if I can work with this group and have it in my home, because you take it home. And as much as you want to disconnect from that, but the second, even now, there's times when one of the teenagers, they'll say something or do something a certain way. And I've got to remind myself that this isn't 20 years ago when you were dealing with them in the facilities. This is your teenager in your home, and there's a different way of handling this. But it does affect you in big ways when you go forward from that. I know a lot of people in the mental health field that are like, and I don't know how they lasted as long as they have. I did 13 years and quickly had to jump, thinking corporate was better. But there's a whole other set of traumas. But
well, and becoming an entrepreneur is its own bag of baggage, right? Its own.
Yeah.
And so I worked with a client, and she used to say, if you want to start your own business, great. Be prepared to deal with the personal ish as well, because it bleeds into your business. It affects your business. And so, you're preparing to do a talk, and you've got a magazine, and I want you to talk about those things, but I'm going to ask you a question that we didn't talk about before. So this is totally off the cuff.
Okay.
But it's in relation to what you're going to be talking about. So that's why I feel comfortable going, okay, yeah, I think you can answer this. What's the one thing, or one thing you would recommend, or one thing that you do when you are trying to take care of yourself and your own mental health.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to talk about taking a day, right,
Mm-hmm.
for yourself, for mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sometimes that feels too big for an entrepreneur. Like, I can't take a whole day. What the hell? I got too much to do. I got too much going on. But we can do the one thing. And then maybe the next day, the next time we take a break, we can do a couple of things.
Mm-hmm.
And it can build up to a half a day or a day. I take a day, girl. I don't have a problem with that. I've got that down. But if there's one thing that you do that you find that helps you, or one thing that you've seen others, like benefit from, what would that one mental health thing be?
Well, one thing that I do that I'm intentional about is I make sure I move around, right? And that don't take much, even if it's like in between calls, But a big thing that I do is I go outside and I take a walk. First of all, it's free. It don't cost anything to go outside.
Laura and I do that too.
And take a walk. And there's something about being in nature. Sometimes I'll go out and listen to like some jazz or something, like to where I can still hear outside. I won't blast, my headphones. For me, I think it's a safety issue anyway, but other times I'll even just kind of walk and listen to the cars ride by, listen to the birds, listen to the wind. There's just something about being in nature for me that grounds me, and it allows me to just kind of appreciate where I'm at, because where I'm at now, a couple years ago, I wish I was there, and allowing myself to take a walk and just taking myself. Because sometimes you just have to get out of that environment that you're in. If you're at your desk all day, you're working, you may just need to get up and get out, and maybe a walk is like, oh, you know what, Jamie, I can't do a walk. Well, step outside, for a minute and just look outside and just kind of it's fall, that crisp air is now out, so it's just step outside and get some breathe, get the wind in your face, even if it's for a couple minutes, and then kind of do a reset. I don't care, entrepreneur, if you're busy, you have it's not optional. You have to.
Right. I agree.
But
that's the common pushback.
Yeah, you have, and then it's like, if you're overwhelmed that much, then it sounds like someone needs to delegate. You might be doing too much, and
you're preaching to the choir, but yes.
Probably email marketing, you're probably doing the product, you're doing it. It's like, you might want to start really sitting down and say, okay, I maybe I can afford to delegate. Fiverr is available to everybody. There's virtual assistants. There's just so many things out there that are available. And even if, and try it out, maybe just try to delegate just to kind of see. I know for me, like if I get overwhelmed, that was an issue that I was having. Because it's like, nah, I want it done my way. I know it's going to be done right. I ain't going to worry about going behind nobody. But at the same time, is it worth your mental health? It's not.
No,
it's not.
Nothing ever is worth
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know I go out every morning and I stand in the grass. My neighbors think I'm a crazy person because I'm playing, like I'm talking to the butterflies or I'm talking to the plants. Like, oh, pretty, come here. Do you want to land? Like, they're like this one. But I'll get barefoot because I've found I was barefoot as a kid. They couldn't keep shoes on me. And I was a real free-spirited kid. And then the rubber in the soles and how it blocks, like I learned about the grounding, how that blocks. Yeah. So I've now learned to now take my shoes off again. All that training of put your shoes on, always have shoes on. I was like, I was better off as a kid with my bare feet running around all the time because I was always grounded where you don't think about that later. So I'm real intentional about now going outside with no shoes, and really just being out with no shoes and then talking to the nature that comes around. If something comes close to you, though I'm fearful of bugs, I'm still like, oh, look, you're so cute. Like, keep your distance. Don't come at me.
You stay over there. You're cute over there.
But it's more the acknowledgement of what's around. And
Yeah.
the more I do that, the more I'm realizing there's so much more that's around, that comes around, that wants to interact, that wants to be like, oh, look, she's
And that's
friendly.
one of the most
You know,
powerful things you can do for anxiety. So I have some anxiety issues, and that's one of the first things they tell you is get present.
Yes.
You know, grab something, touch something.
Yeah, the senses.
Say out loud, I see a bridge, I see a butterfly, I see the things. I'm here in reality, and I'm okay. But, and I heard Gary Brecka say 6 minutes barefoot on the ground has all the benefits you need. A minimum of 6 minutes a day. You'll get tangible results from that by discharging and just getting barefoot on the ground.
That and playing in the rain. I look like a crazy person when it rains because I go outside immediately as it starts to rain and get drenched.
Hey, it's a free shower.
Right. Everybody's running, you know, they're on their walks and they're running, and me, I'm just walking in the rain. And my people are like, are you crazy? I'm like, I don't know what it is.
As long as it's not lightning, I condone that.
Right. So I can be hard-headed, but yes. I'm having this walk. Lightning can come. I'm doing what I'm doing.
I want to give you an opportunity to talk about your magazine and talk about the summit that's coming up that you're speaking at.
Yes. So the summit is called the Work-Life Balance Summit. It's October 4th and 5th. I'll be speaking on October 4th. And my workshop is going to be talking about how to plan your mental health day. So as we mentioned that, I'm actually going to in a workshop.
I love that. I'm signing up for that.
Yeah, I want people to, because sometimes it's important. You know what to do, but just like how to do it can be challenging. And then it's like, all right, well, if we do it in the workshop, you'll have your day, you know, you'll get that from it. You'll have your day planned off. And, you know, and my hopes is that with this activity that people will engage and do it more often, because, you know, you don't want to plan a day off when you're burnt out. You know, it's just like when you plan your vacation, you start getting excited, you know, like the week or two before your vacation comes up, you know, you perk up and things like that. And it's just, we should be doing that all the time, you know. And so that is October 4th and 5th. I'll definitely, you'll have the link in the show notes.
Yep, we'll drop a link in the show notes.
Check that out.
I want to see you guys there. Lisa, Laura.
Yeah.
And I'm excited. I'm definitely excited. And then the magazine, Helpful Living Magazine, we come out quarterly. So our August issue is out currently. Our next issue will be the final issue of the year, will be in November. And with the magazine, the goal really is to just inform people on resources. Every article is a resource. And so typically the articles consist of information from, you know, clinicians or anyone with lived experience. We have interviews from entrepreneurs who are, who have like programs, products, or services to kind of help people. And we have informational articles, not informational articles, I call them individual articles. And so it's like a personal story. So somebody with a lived experience to share their story, which I think is really important because, you know, when you hear somebody's story, when you hear that someone's gone through something and they've overcome it, or maybe they're still living in it, it's empowering. It's empowering for the person to tell their story. And then it's empowering for the reader because it gives them hope. And my whole, you know, mantra really for the magazine is ending the stigma one issue at a time. And so I want to continue to normalize. I want, when people think of mental health, I want them to think about Helpful Living Magazine, because the goal really is to just provide resources and just an abundance. It's like a big hug, like to let people know they're not alone.
I love it.
You know, and that, you know, we are in this together. Like the world, life be doing the most sometimes, you know. So it could be a lot for us, but just to know that you're not alone. Reading an article can really help change someone's trajectory.
And just so our listeners are clear, and I'm clear too, Helpful Living Magazine isn't just for entrepreneurs, right?
No, it's for everyone.
It's for everyone.
Yeah, and you don't have to you don't have to have an illness to read it. You know, it's not
That's
like,
what I was gonna say next. Yes.
yeah, it's for everyone. Because honestly, when you think about it, we all know somebody that. I mean, we talked earlier in the show about having mental health challenges, right? So we all deal with that. But we also know somebody that may have a mental health diagnosis, whether it affects us directly or indirectly. It could be us. It could be a coworker. It could be, someone you're partnered up with, on a business deal or whatever the case may be. Like mental health is everywhere, and it's just live a little longer. You'll encounter it because at some point we all deal with grief, with has challenges, of its own. So
Yeah, absolutely.
And mental health doesn't have to be ongoing. It's a lifetime thing for someone who's got lifetime mental health stuff, maybe something a little more severe. But those little breaks in our life where there's a mental health issue in that moment, that's not all encompassing for the rest of your life, generally. And I think people get scared of that. Like, oh, I struggled with this and they tagged me on this and now I've got this thing attached to me that I've got mental problems. It's like, no, we all have a mental issue at some point around certain things.
Yes.
However long you may need to carry that out, and it can end. My therapist let me go, and people are like, what do you mean? Therapists don't ever let you go. And I'm like, nope. After 2.5 years, she's like, you've got what you need. You've gotten the truth. You're transparent with yourself.
And
as you come to that, you're good.
Next week's guest is a prime example. So we talk in next week's episode, we talk about narcissists and narcissistic traits, toxic relationships. Those are temporary.
Yeah.
That's a section of time that you were in a toxic relationship, you recovered. It's kind of like having surgery. I'm post-op. I'm 2 months post-op, but I'm still healing, and my body will be healing for the next year physically. It's the same way when you go through any kind of heartbreak or grief or things like, toxic relationships. So I think this is a really good tie-in. So next week's guest is someone we've had on the podcast before. We had a wonderful conversation with her. Her name's Maria Rieger. Oh shit! Did I say it wrong, Laura? Rieger. Okay. Which is it?
Rieger.
Okay, so I said it right. But she was on the podcast back on episode 70 in June. We talked about boundaries, what they are, how to set them, how to honor them, the benefits that they bring. But we also talked about how boundaries aren't just for business or just for personal lives and relationships. I learned a valuable lesson about boundaries in business. But also we need to honor those boundaries ourselves. And we touched a little bit on narcissism and toxic relationships and how it's not just a personal thing. So Maria came back to continue the conversation. We're so grateful for that. So next week's conversation will be about creating and upholding boundaries, especially related to toxic relationships and people that have those narcissistic traits. It's a really great conversation. It was pre-recorded, but it's something that we really feel like is important. Just like today's conversation, we need to have more conversations like this, and we need to make it more normal and every day. Like, let's talk about that. So thank you so much for being here and being with us and telling your stories, because like you said, our stories are powerful.
Yes, they are, and they help shape us, and then they also help others, as they continue to grow and glow on their journey. So thank you, ladies, for having me.
You're very welcome.
Lily, thank you for your time and coming in. It's been great.
Yeah. Our only announcement this week is just like last week. We have sponsorships available. So if you are interested in sponsoring the podcast, go ahead and check our website out, ftcpodcast.com. We have a page there about sponsorships and how you can sponsor, and how you can also get a free sponsorship. That can happen. All right. So Jamie, again, thank you for being with us today. And to our audience and our listeners, thank you for listening. We will see and talk to you guys next week, Monday at 12 Eastern. See ya.
Yeah.